My boyfriend destroyed my prescription after surgery and said he saved me. I didn't even know he'd done it until later that night when the anesthesia wore off and I asked him to grab my medication. 3 weeks ago, I had a minor outpatient procedure. It wasn't anything huge. They fixed what needed fixing, handed me a short prescription for painkillers, and sent me home the same day. It was just 5 days worth, standard for what I'd done. I was sore, exhausted, and mostly just happy it was over. My boyfriend Derek had driven me there. We'd been together about 8 months at that point, so it wasn't brand new, but it also wasn't one of those relationships where you've already seen every side of a person. I trusted him. I felt comfortable with him. I thought I knew who he was. He'd mentioned before that addiction ran in his family. His brother had gone through it badly, and I knew it was something that really affected him. I respected that. I never dismissed it, and I never gave him any reason to think I wasn't careful about that kind of thing. When we pulled into the pharmacy drive-thru, I was half asleep in the passenger seat. I handed him my insurance card and let him deal with it because I felt awful and just wanted to go home. He came back to the car, put the bag in the back seat, got in, and drove us home. He didn't act weird. He didn't say anything strange, so I didn't think twice about it. That evening, when the local anesthesia wore off, the real pain started. It wasn't dramatic, screaming pain. It was that deep, draining kind that makes your whole body tense up because you already know moving is going to hurt. I couldn't get comfortable. Sitting hurt, lying down hurt, turning to one side hurt. I was tired enough to cry and uncomfortable enough that I couldn't rest. So I asked Derek to grab my medication, and he just kind of went quiet. It was immediate. Not confused quiet, not distracted quiet, more like the kind of quiet where you can tell somebody already knows exactly what they're about to say, and they think it's going to make sense once they say it out loud. Then he told me very calmly, "I have to be honest with you, I didn't feel it." At first, I honestly thought I had misheard him. I asked him what he meant, and he said he looked up the medication while we were waiting, saw that it was an opiate, and decided he wasn't going to let me take it. That was how he said it. He decided. Not that he wanted to talk about it. Not that he was worried. Not that he thought we should call the doctor and ask questions. He decided that I wasn't going to take the medication my doctor had prescribed to me after a procedure. I just stared at him. I remember saying, "That's my prescription. A doctor gave me that. I'm in pain." And he nodded like he'd already gone through the whole conversation in his head and was prepared for every response I could possibly have. He started telling me about his brother, how his brother had started with a prescription too, how nobody thinks it's going to become a problem until it is. Then he said he loved me and wasn't going to watch someone else he cared about go down that road. It was one of those moments where you're so stunned by the logic that you almost don't know where to start. I hadn't asked for anything unusual. I wasn't trying to get extra medication. I had just had a medical procedure and wanted to take the exact medication I'd been prescribed for the exact number of days I'd been told to take it. So I asked him what I was supposed to do instead. And he said, "Tylenol and rest." Like that settled it. That night was awful. I barely slept. Every time I moved, it felt like something inside me pulled the wrong way. I kept waking up, trying to shift around, trying to convince myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I could just tough it out. At one point, I got up to get more Tylenol, and Derek woke up just long enough to mumble, "You're doing great," before rolling over and going back to sleep. That was the part that really got under my skin. I was lying there in pain because he had made a decision about my body behind my back, and he was acting like he was guiding me through something noble. Like this was a lesson. Like I was supposed to appreciate the strength-building moment he'd created for me. By the next morning, I was exhausted and furious. I told him I was calling my doctor and getting the prescription filled myself, and that was when it went from controlling to, honestly, surreal. He told me he'd already thought about that. And if I did fill it, he didn't think he could stay in the relationship because it would mean I didn't respect his boundaries around substance use in his home. That sentence still bothers me every time I think about it because of how calculated it was. He destroyed my prescription, told me I had no right to replace it, and then reframed the entire thing like I was the one crossing a line by trying to access my own legally prescribed medication. He took something he had no right to control and turned it into a conversation about his boundaries. That was the moment I stopped seeing this as concern. Concern doesn't do that. Concern doesn't make secret decisions for you, interfere with your medical care, and then try to make you feel selfish for objecting. Control does that, so I called my doctor anyway. She asked me to explain exactly what happened. And when I did, she got very quiet. Not the same kind of quiet Derek got. Her quiet felt more like somebody trying to stay professional while hearing something completely unacceptable. Then she came back on the line and told me very clearly that what he did was not okay. She said prescribed medication belongs to the patient, that interfering with somebody's medical care is not a gray area, and then she called in a new prescription. She also told me to fill it somewhere he didn't know about, and to think very carefully about what the situation was telling me. That last part stuck with me. I filled the new prescription that afternoon while Derek was at work. I took the first dose sitting in my car in the pharmacy parking lot because I genuinely did not want to wait one more second. I just sat there for a minute, feeling the pain finally start to back off and thinking about how insane the last 48 hours had been. I was recovering from surgery and I had to hide my own medication like I was doing something shameful. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because the man who was supposed to be taking care of me had decided he got to overrule me, overrule my doctor, and manage my body according to his own fears. When I got home, Derek asked how I was feeling. I said better, and he smiled, like he had something to do with that. That smile honestly made my skin crawl, because it was so clear he still saw himself as the good guy. After that, I kept the prescription at my sister's place. I picked it up on schedule and lied a few times about where I was going because I didn't trust him not to take it again. And that part felt humiliating. I was sneaking around, not because I was doing anything reckless, but because I needed to protect my own prescription from my own boyfriend. The day after I finished the medication, I ended it. He was shocked, genuinely shocked. He kept saying he had only been trying to protect me, that most people don't have someone in their life who cares enough to make hard calls for them. He said I was punishing him for loving me. But by then, I could finally hear what he was actually saying. He wasn't saying he got scared. He wasn't saying he handled it badly. He wasn't saying his family history got in his head and made him panic. What he was saying was that he believed he had the right to overrule me, and that was the whole problem. So I told him the decision about what goes into my body is mine. Not his family's history, not his fear. Mine. 3 days later, he texted me, I saved you from yourself. You just can't see it yet. I never answered, because by then I understood this was never really about me. It was about him needing to feel in control of something that had once made him feel helpless. Maybe he really believed he was helping. Maybe he really told himself this was love. But somebody believing they're right doesn't make what they did loving. It just makes them dangerous in a quieter way. If your partner ignored your doctor, destroyed your prescription, and then called it protection, would you have left immediately, or was ending it after I recovered the right move?